Hello you guys and welcome back to the channel. So thank you so much for joining the Prime Vanguard channel today. I'm going to be showing you guys my Maelstrom deck updated after the English release of Twinkle Melody. Now we're 1 week into Twinkle Melody and the introduction of Sanctuary Guard here in the West, and this is the changes I made to the deck in order for it to stand up against the meta. Now currently here in America and how it's playing out, a lot of players have switched over to Bermuda or are still playing previous meta along with Gabriel and trying to make everything work with the Gurgwit ban list. So with the introduction of all of that, I figured, you know, why not take my Maelstrom deck that I haven't played since the BT11 set dropped and just try it out against the meta. And honestly, I couldn't say that with the way that this deck is now, I couldn't be any more happy with it. So Maelstrom and where it fits in the meta right now, I would honestly give this deck like a B or a C, but with the way that I think we can kick it up to a low A. I mean, it's got everything it needs, and I'm going to show you all the cards I put in this deck to make it work out against the current meta. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright you guys, so to start off, we play 4 copies of Blue Storm Supreme Dragon Maelstrom. Still an amazingly ridiculous card. For those of you guys that do not know, this card has been out since VBTO8 in My Glorious Justice, and it has the following effect, which is act once per turn, you may counterblast 1, and until the end of this turn, your opponent cannot intercept, only can call up to 1 card from their hand to the Guardian Circle. If you have a Maelstrom unit in the soul, this unit gets 10,000 power. This unit and your entire front row gets 10,000 power. So this ability, obviously, the way it's designed is it's meant to be a finisher for the deck with it combining with Maelstrom. Using this after your Maelstrom turn, you can go ahead and set up your front row with the additional XL markers and then force your opponent to have to guard very carefully or not be able to guard any of their attacks at all. Seeing as how we're in a force meta right now, at least with decks like all the Bermuda decks running around, you're definitely going to have to watch out for your numbers and watch out with them, since one damage trigger can not mess you up, but at least not affect you this way or mess with your numbers and how they're going to be. So Maelstrom's ability is still really good, but the way this deck is focusing on, we're going to rely on this ability to be our finisher. For our next grade 3, we play 4 copies of Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom, the true MVP of the Maelstrom deck itself. With the most release of the newest set, they really did give this card a lot of justice. A lot of the support surprisingly didn't work with the Glory Maelstrom card as it did in making this card better and all of your on-hit abilities Aqua Force better as well. So if you guys don't know what this Maelstrom does, it was released all the way back in the second extra booster set of Vanguard Standard, and it has the following ability. So its first ability is act once per turn, you counterblast 1 and all of your front row units get plus 3,000 power. Then its second ability states when your rear guard's attack hits a Vanguard on the 3rd or 4th battle, you discard 2 cards from your hand and restand this unit. So before in the past, when Aqua Force was, you know, young and early, it just came out, the second ability was really hard to reach, and it was pretty much almost impossible for you to get to that attack unless you played cards like Riptide Dragon or you played a bunch of front triggers to make your other attacks a lot more scary. So with the support that this deck got in the most recent set of Vanguard, this 3rd and 4th ability is actually like really strong now, because now when you restand, not only are you getting another twin drive, but you also have other effects that give this stack on this card and pretty much give you a lot of pluses when you hit the Vanguard. And with the way that a lot of the support works now, you don't even have to hit your opponent's Vanguard to get all of your effects. So thanks to Maelstrom getting all the support he did, this deck is a lot more viable, because now you're going for a double Vanguard attack on your first grade 3 turn or your second grade 3 turn, but either way, with other cards that you have, you're stacking effects onto them to get more power and drive checks. So overall, they really did Maelstrom justice in the release of the newest Aqua Force set. Moving on to grade 2s, I played 3 copies of Press Stream Dragon. So truth be told, at the beginning I did not like this card when it first came out with the little bit of Maelstrom support that we got in the set before this, but now with everything that we have now, this card is amazing. I'm truly in love with this card. It does so much. It has the ability where act once per turn, you counterblast 1, discard a card with Maelstrom from your hand to the drop zone, and then you choose one of your Vanguards and it gets 10,000 power and plus 1 drive. So like I said before with Maelstrom, since Maelstrom now has access to being able to restand easier with the other cards you play in the deck, you're going 3 drive checks with a discard of 2, so you're always plussing 1 off this. And even though this card's a discard doesn't matter, especially the fact that you're drawing cards in the form of drive checks, meaning all your triggers will be active when you pull them, therefore giving you a lot more resources and you're taking a lot more advantage of the cards you have in the deck that you couldn't get before and going through your deck a lot faster. Prestige Dragon is truly a staple of the Maelstrom deck. I can't see anybody playing Maelstrom without this card. Whether it be 2 or 3 is up to you. I feel like 4 is too clunky, and I felt like 1 I just wasn't able to see it because I can't search it out. So I feel like 2 or 3 is a good spot, and I just chose 3 for this deck. Now for our next grade 2, we play 4 copies of Jewel Staff of Emerald Elpida. So this card is one of the cards that makes our deck a lot more viable now, or at least keeps our deck relevant. If you guys don't know what she does, she was released in set 11 of Storm of the Blue Cavalry, and she has the following effect. Her continuous ability is on rearguard or guardian circle. If you have a Vanguard with Maelstrom, she gets 5,000 power and 5,000 shield at all times. Her second ability is when it attacks a Vanguard, you counterblast 1, and until the end of that battle, your when attack hits effects activate even if the attack did not hit. So if you don't know what that means, that essentially means that whenever this card were to attack against your opponent or be boosted by an effect that required you to hit your opponent, regardless of this attack hits or not, you're going to get that effect. So, as we stated earlier, Maelstrom need the 3rd or 4th battle to hit in order for them to get the restamp. And your opponent, if they are a smart player, would know that they need to guard first. They don't need to guard the first 2 attacks, but they need to guard the 3rd and 4th attack. So having a card like Elpida who says, hey, it doesn't matter if you guard this attack or not, I'm going to get the effect off, really does help the deck. And it does change the way that your opponent has to guard and plan their moves around their attack or defense, simply because Elpida will just offer you an absurd amount of advantage. It does cost a counterblast, which this deck doesn't counterblast as much as I thought it would, but you know, sometimes you might have to choose between certain effects that you want to play for that one counterblast if you're playing against a smart player. But overall, this card is what keeps your deck going. It's one of the main staples of the deck. I do feel like this is another card that you have to play. I'm playing 4 simply because I like the fact that she offers you power and shield. Aqua Force has always had the problem of like defending against itself because you spend so much of your resources making a board and playing against decks that can, you know, board wipe you easily or knock out your front row. You're going to want to call these units back and get them out of defense. So this card helps you up with your power problem and your Maelstrom turns, your defense problems and your regular Maelstrom turns, and just keeping your regular grade 3 Maelstrom turns like active, as she allows you to get the on-hit effect going. For our last grade 2, I play 4 copies of Drifting Flow Fencer. So Drifting Flow Fencer is not so much a staple in the deck, but a card that I really do like for the amount of advantage and resources that offers you. For those of you that do not know, this is another card that came out in set 11 of Blue Storm Cavalry, and it has the following effects. His ability states, on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, when placed, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and you pick a card of Maelstrom among them and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. His second ability states that when it attacks, if it is the 4th battle of that turn or more, this unit gets 15,000 power if you have a Vanguard with Maelstrom in its card name. So obviously this card is set up to be a card that would get power on the 4th battle of the turn to increase your chances of getting that attack hit if you don't have cards like Elpida or the other cards you play in the deck. Now the main thing I play this card for, and why I keep it at 4, is simply because of its ability to search out Maelstrom for just free advantage. Because as we've seen with cards that we need to have Maelstrom as a Vanguard, we need to have Maelstrom in our hand for the Prestige Dragons, and we want to have Glory in our hand so that we can go into our next turn. So pretty much we want to see at least 1 or 2 copies of Maelstrom in our hands at all time, and just having cards allow us to do that for free is just really helpful. The 15k power is nice because this is an offensive unit that you can rely on when you go into your Glory Maelstrom turns, as he'll be 24 on his own, he'll be 29 on Excel 2, he'll be 34 on Excel 1, and then he'll get the 10k power, and then his number will change based off whatever Excel mark you have or whatever trigger effects you stack via onto this card. So overall, Drifting Flow Fencer is very helpful in our resource game and our offense game. To the grade 1, so this is where it gets very flexible in the deck, but for me, I'm playing 3 copies of Battle Siren Viviana. Now, before I go into her effects, just to note, Battle Siren Viviana did have a errata, so the effect stated on this card isn't the actual effect that it is. So her ability actually is when the attack you boosted hits a Vanguard, if it is the 3rd battle of that turn or more, you put this into your unit, into your soul, and give a unit plus 3,000 power, and you draw a card. So I didn't know about the 3,000 power. I actually found out about the errata very recently when going over my cards. I always liked Viviana because she did fix an issue, again, that the deck had prior, which was resource management. But now that we play cards like Elpida and other cards in our deck that enable our on-hit abilities to activate, we can stack this card behind Elpida or another one of our cards that we're going to show you later, and you'll be able to get her effect off. And not only you get 3,000 power to unit, but you'll be able to draw a card. So this card just offers you so much resource, and because of how the deck works now, it's actually really free, and it's just really good to have. It fixes any soul issues you might have in the deck, which we don't have any at all, because not too many of our units actually soul blast, except maybe like 1 or 2, and then she lets you draw a card on top of the cards that we're already drawing from our double twin drive and our press team dragon. So overall, Viviana's a good card you like to play, but this is just for the more resource based players. If you want something more aggressive, I would either say drop another card in the deck and play Penguin, or play Theo if you want to go all aggro. But I like this card because the amount of free resources it offers me. For my next grade 1, I play 3 copies of Bubble Ball Corporal. Now personally for me, I did not like this card in the beginning, simply because I felt like I already had like another card I play in the deck, and then I have this card, but this card is a turn 2 ride option, and let me show you what it does. So Bubble Ball Corporal has the following effects on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. When the attack it hits, or when the attack it boosts, were to hit an opponent's Vanguard, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and add a Maelstrom unit to your hand. So this card does the same thing as Low Fencer, except that the attack it boosts has to hit, or the attack itself that it attacks has to hit. But with cards like Elpida and the other cards we play on the deck, it's very easy to obtain this effect. So this, again, to me is a flex slot in the deck. I don't really consider it a staple in Maelstrom unless you want to go the full-on Maelstrom strategy, but I play 3 of it simply because it's more resource managing and deck thinning to do, along with a card that you could put behind Elpida or another card that I'll show you later, and get more resources back. So 3 Bubble Ball Corporal is all I got for this deck. And then finally, for the main MVP of the grade 1 lineup, we play 4 copies of Radiate Assault. So this card honestly saved the entire deck. This card's more important than Elpida, and I'll read you the effects so you can understand what I'm talking about. So Radiate Assault has the following effectors on the Rearguard Circle. When placed, you Soul Blast 1, and until the end of the turn, for the battle that this unit attacked or boosted, your when attack hit effects activate, regardless if they hit. But he has the other effectors. Then you pick a card with Maelstrom on the place on the bottom of your deck, and then you draw a card. So not only does this card help us recycle our Maelstroms, as we pick a lot of Maelstroms in our hand, which is a lot of grade 3s, so we'll discard them for pretty much whatever we need them to, or we'll discard them for our press teams. This card gives you recycling, and then it's another extender into the deck as another card that we can play on the board to activate our on-hit effects. And as you see, we play a lot of on-hit effects in this deck, so pretty much being able to get those effects off whenever we can is just very important. This card is extremely important. This is more important than Elpida, simply because this card costs a Soul Blast, Elpida costs a Counter Blast, so that's why I was saying you can lower your numbers of Elpida in the deck, but as long as you have 4 of this, you're straight. But Radiate Assault does so much for the deck, and the fact that it makes everything that you do now officially free, regardless if you have Elpida or not, and it's another extender, you're pretty much playing 8 cards in the deck that guarantee you your Maelstrom attack, but you do want to draw into this card, so obviously it's very important to make sure you can draw into it or get out any single way you can. So I would just make sure you call it the correct time so you make sure you can get the full use of this card, but overall, really a main staple of the deck has to be 4. And then for my last grade 1, I play 4 copies of Blue Wave Soldier Senior Beragios. So Blue Wave Soldier Senior Beragios is the grade 3 searcher of the Aqua Force clan. So he just has the following effect of when placed, you discard a card from your hand. When you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you get a grade 3, then you'll discard. His other ability is continuous. During your turn, if you have 4 more rear guards at rest, this unit gets 5,000 power. So I'm only playing Beragios because it's a first turn ride thing that you can do, which helps me thin my deck out more for more grade 3s. And then I'm just playing it also for the power, because this is the only grade 1 Aqua Force that just gets free power for such like an easy effect. Like the other cards that I saw that offer power, like even cards like Theo has to hit. This card just says if you have 4 units at rest, which this deck has no problem doing since the amount of resource that we get back, even against board right, it gets 5k power. And you really do want to make good numbers because you are trying to kill your opponent on the glory turn, so it's very important that you just play all the free stuff that you can get to get more power and spend less resources. So that's why I'm playing Beragios. You don't have to play this card, you can play more grade 2s, you can drop this card. This is like the most free slot in the deck. I'm just playing for Beragios because I like this card and I like what it does for the deck. Now for our triggers. So my trigger lineup I'm still experimenting with, but for right now I like 2 front triggers, we're playing Enemy Seeking Seagull Soldier. So again, the Glory Maelstrom turn is how we want to win our games, and having 2 front triggers to help us, maintain our numbers against a Force deck or Bermuda deck specifically is still important to have. You are going to get your Excel bonus, and then you play cards like Elpida, and you play cards like Metal Fencer, who allow you to pretty much get additional power, but getting 10k power to the front row is nice because you still are an Excel deck and you want as much power as possible. So 2 front triggers is good. You can play anything else. You can play crits, you can play crits, more fronts or draws, but I like 2 front triggers because I do want to win on my Glory Maelstrom turn, and just dropping that front trigger, especially when you're only playing 2 of it, your opponent doesn't expect it, it's really good. Then I play 2 copies of Battleship Intelligence and 4 copies of Supersonic Sailor. So in the deck, as I was showing earlier, you do get the restand on your Maelstrom turns, and since you get the restand on your Maelstrom turns, criticals are important because if I'm restanding with my Vanguard and I throw a critical on it, my attack now potentially becomes lethal. So having the critical triggers in this deck is actually very helpful versus the fronts, because I don't want to just be restanding my Vanguard and making big columns when I can be restanding my Vanguard and making lethal attacks. So that's why I play crits, but again, like the trigger lineup in this deck is so free. You don't even have to play crits. You can play all fronts and your attacks become more lethal, but I feel like if you're gonna play all fronts, that's when I would go for a multi-attack based build, and I can't show you guys that build, but just let me know in the comments below. But again, this build's just focusing on getting your Maelstrom turn, restanding with that, and then finally going your Glory Maelstrom turn after you set up so much pressure from your previous turn. So that's why I play 6 crits. Next up, I play 4 of the draw PGs. I'm playing 4 copies of Emerald Shield Pascal. I like the draw PGs more than I do the critical PGs in this deck. I feel like the critical PGs are just too aggro, and again, this deck does have pieces you want to draw into, so playing 4 of the draw PGs just helps us draw into our pieces. Because again, Aqua Force has always been a combo deck, so you draw into your pieces, and having draw triggers helps you do that, but this is enough for me. And then next up, we play 4 copies of Medical Officer of the Rainbow Elixir. Heal triggers, good card, always good to have, no debate. For my starter, I play 1 copies of Officer Cadet Eric. Eric hits Maelstrom, best Aqua Force starter ever. Alright you guys, now I'm going to talk to you guys about the marker of the deck. So in this deck, the main marker that I do play on average, I've always found it to be going to XL2. So the reason why I say I go into XL2, especially in most of my games, is because again, this is a combo deck. You want to draw into your pieces, so XL2 just helps you with that. And with the way that Bermuda is, Bermuda, depending on how it's going, can just get so much advantage and just be so aggressive early that you need to draw back in your pieces to get back some of the resources you've lost from defending against their insane attacks. So XL2 is the way that I've been going. But the reason why I showed this deck off at the beginning with XL1 is because I definitely do not want you guys to sleep on XL1. XL1 is the way you want to go. If you look at your hand and you've got all your key pieces, you've got the Maelstrom, the Press Steam, the Metal Fencer, and the Elpida, I say go XL1, especially if you're going first and your opponent's at 2 damage. Because you can potentially kill on that. XL1 says to your opponent that you're not playing games, you really want to go on a hardcore aggressive turn, and I feel like it's slept on because a lot of people are just going to automatically go for that advantage because it's a combo deck. But XL1 not only does it surprise your opponent, but it messes up with the way that they guard, because now that they know that their attack that isn't just going to be 14 or 19k base anymore, is now going to swing over 23. So if you pull a trigger, that means that attack is automatically going to be over 15k or 20k guard. So you're taking more cards out of their hand to defend against attacks, especially when you go into your Glory Maelstrom turn, and now you're pretty much giving 10k to the front row, and the 2 units on Excel just got plus 20k, which means that now that their attack has to be guarded by a 20k unit. Or because 15k won't cut it if you have units like Metal Fence or Elpida, or even the other units that you play in the deck, or we have Nirvana who gives 3k, so your deck automatically hits magical numbers when you're on XL1. But you have to be very cautious when you go into XL1. You already have to be in a good spot, and you already have to have the common pieces you need before you go into XL1. And I feel like this is just better to go if you're going first in the game and you just have what you need. So XL1 is not always the best way to go, but it definitely is the way to go if you've already got what you need and you feel like you're in a good spot and you know what you're doing. So I just say don't sleep on XL1. Alright you guys, well that was it for today's deck profile. Thank you so much for watching, and like I said before, I've got plenty more content coming up for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and if your friends thinking about building Aqua Force, go ahead and share this video with them. Again you guys, all of my decks are templates or just bases for all of you guys to use. Everything in this deck is my personal opinion, how I want to build it. And like I said, I've got more stuff coming out, so don't forget the notification bell when you guys get notified when I make a new video. I'll see you soon.